So I see we have our colleague Indra Joshi on the line. Welcome, Indra. Indra's the Director of AI for NHSX and has been a regular presenter at these events. So we're moving over to Indra.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nina. Lisa, sorry. And thank you, Nina, as well. Can we switch slides, please? So I thought what would be helpful in this session, and conscious of time as well, is just to give a brief overview of not what the lab will be. I think we spoke about that in previous sessions, but a brief update on what we've been doing over the last 3 or 4 months. And bearing in mind, as colleagues have mentioned before, we have gone through COVID. A lot of staff have been deployed in different programs, myself included. I was deployed on a different program. And so I'm incredibly proud of what the team have done despite adversity in setting up some of the work for the AI lab. So if we could skip to the next slide, please. So the first thing we did is, as some of you may recall, very early on during the response, we had an incredible number of really helpful offers. Industry, SMEs, lots of people came up to both us in the centre, but also out into communities and said, look, we've got products, we want to help you, we want to help the country in its response to the pandemic. And a lot of people said to us, we really need a bit of help, actually. If we could just skip to the next slide whilst I'm speaking, that'd be great. Can you give us a bit of guidance? And so what we quickly pulled together was essentially a checklist for people to go through when they were either being approached by companies or wanted or had found a partner that they wanted to work with, not necessarily directly related to the pandemic, but with AI. And so if we could skip to the next slide, what we did was on our website, on the NHSX website, you'll see, if we could skip to the next slide, please, we published a buyer's guide for health and care. The one we've got at the moment is what we call a version 0.1. So we published that probably about April, May time. It was essentially a checklist of 10 criteria just to have a look through whilst you're trying to procure something, understand the different frameworks that are there, what implementation considerations you need to do, and just some of the kind of basics around what is the terminology we're using. That was quite well received. What we did over the period of sort of April, March, oh my goodness, I'm going backwards in time, April, May, June and July, is go back out to stakeholders. Some of you too may have responded on the call, to say, could you give some feedback on this? And we've now had a wide range of stakeholders' feedback on that initial buyer's guide, and we're hoping to publish a much more updated version with a lot more in depth behind that shortly over the next coming months. And we're quite conscious that whilst this is for AI, as Nina has mentioned, we've also got to make sure we've got the basics right. So we're wanting to publish the updated guidance that Nina's mentioned as well, so it aligns. And some of you will also be aware that there's changes happening with the medical devices regulation that has been postponed to next year. But again, some of the guidance that MHRA put out over the last few months on medical devices, we've included on here, and it's also currently included on our NHSX website. So this was a guide to help people when they were buying products that utilise AI technologies. If we could skip over to the next 2 slides, please. The second thing we had, and the next one. The second thing the lab has done over the last 4 months is, as most of you will be aware, COVID is a respiratory condition. It affects predominantly the respiratory organs. And one of the things we've always been battling with the AI lab and across the spectrum is we have a lot of companies who come to us with a product. But one of the key aspects, especially for national deployment, for example, with PHE and screening, is we need a way of both evaluating and validating those. And so during the COVID, predominantly the pandemic, but this is continuing, a lot of the information is on the NHSX website, and it will take you to a separate site as well, where you can see which trusts are donating data, how to access that data. And if any colleagues and listeners on the call are interested in that, please do take a look at that website, and there is an email address there that you can contact for more information. But the idea behind the NCCID, so the National COVID Chest Imaging Database, is to collect chest images, be they X-rays, MRIs or otherwise, to understand how we can better understand this spread of disease. So this essentially is a big research program, and we did go with HRA and get all the right approvals. We did it quite at pace, so it was a brilliant collaborative effort across multiple different partners. But again, this was a very short project that we set up. We've shown that it's actually doing some very valuable work, and we're quite keen on progressing this as we understand, as Tara mentioned earlier, that COVID may well be here for a while. If we could skip over, next slide, please. So here is just a bit more detail of the NCCID programme. If we could skip over as well, please. And then a lot of different people asked us around regulation. So I mentioned previously, this can be a slightly tricky point. Products are coming out, they're doing some really good stuff. And one of the key aspects of the AI lab was that we would work with regulators collaboratively to actually push forward some of the sticking points that we have in regulation. So if we could skip over the next slide, please. We spoke with the key regulators, HRA, MHRA. I won't say the acronyms, I'll say what they stand for in case colleagues on the phone are not so aware of what they all do. So HRA, Health Research Authority, MHRA, Medicines and Health Research Authority, NICE, National Institute of Clinical Excellence, and CQC, the Quality Care Commission, to say how do we actually work together to push forward some of the sticking points in both digital health technology evaluation, but also in AI. And so the key ones highlighted is a multi-agency advice service. Nina mentioned, and we're working very closely with the AAC, who are also looking at creating a much more connected pathway for innovators. This will link into that. And the idea is I don't want to say the word one-stop shop, but a clear place where guidance, information on both regulation and evaluation of AI technologies can be found. We're very conscious as well as we move forward from products that need regulatory, both ethical approval and then from a medical device perspective, that kind of handover process from HRA to MHRA. They've both joined forces to say, well, how do we push this forward faster? The handover process, some of this is just a technical back end, but again, it's to help make the market access these services better. The rest are around creating a safer environment. So we all may be familiar with the yellow card system. The yellow card system has been there for a number of years. It's attached, clinicians and colleagues will know on the call, we have something called a BNF, a British National Formulary. At the back, there are essentially yellow cards like this. They are yellow and they are a card. And they highlight when something goes wrong. Now, MHRA has been working to digitise this, and we're helping them fund a program so that they can understand how to do that for more machine learning products as well. MHRA have already announced the synthetic data work they're doing that has proven to be quite useful. So we're helping them continue that program. And then what I mentioned earlier, the verification and the development and deployment platform. Again, we know that these are things that innovators and the market have asked us to help them with. So we're working with colleagues to try and build some of these and also work with partners if we need to go out and procure them. And we will be in touch later during the year as we go out to market for some of these products. I think that is the last of my slides. If we could just skip to the end. Oh, yeah, no, not quite the last of my slides. The AI in health and care. So earlier in the year, we announced 140 million award for products in AI in health and care. If we could just skip to the next slide. We had a wonderful response to that. As you can see, we had about 530 applications which were received. And of those, so we split it up into 4 phases. Phases 1 to 3 were the much more earlier stages, either an idea and a conception of an idea, or a product that was not quite market ready, but almost to market ready. And then phase 4 were those that were market ready, had authorization and wanted to have a much wider system-wide adoption. So these are all going now through the final, I can never say these words, due diligence process. And we're hoping to announce both the people who go through that later in the summer, early September. And we're also looking at creating a second round for applications in the autumn. I just wanted to highlight again with this, we had hoped, and this is us just trying to be a bit honest, to move faster with this, but no one could have foreseen COVID. And so again, quite a lot of the staff who were working on this had to be moved across to other programs. So if there are innovators on the call who are a little bit frustrated with the timelines on this one in particular, my apologies that it has taken a while. But again, as I say, we've had to work with quite a skeletal staff in this, and now we're hoping to bring quite a few of them back and ramp up the programme. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Indra. So